There was a time when football thought Marcus Rashford could become anything. A striker, a winger, a number 10. The next great Manchester United forward. And maybe that was the problem. Because when a player can play everywhere, managers eventually start believing he should. So Rashford moved. Left wing, center forward, right wing, back to the left. Different managers drew different formations around him, each one searching for the position that would finally explain Marcus Rashford. But Rashford had already answered them. He kept running toward the same piece of grass. Not the touchline, not the penalty spot. The corridor between the opposition right back and center back, where one defender is never completely sure whether the other is responsible. That uncertainty became Rashford's home. Because defenders were never really afraid of Marcus Rashford's speed. They were afraid of what happened when his speed found space. And for almost 10 years, Rashford's career has risen and fallen according to one simple question. Would football give him that space? Or would it ask him to create it himself? Because Marcus Rashford may not be the most complete winger football has ever seen. But perfection and completeness are not the same thing. And to understand why, you have to stop watching the ball and start watching the run. September 2022, Manchester United against Arsenal. Arsenal arrive at Old Trafford unbeaten, playing brave football, pushing bodies forward and leaving something behind them that Marcus Rashford values more than possession. Grass. United break. Rashford accelerates through the middle and finishes. Then it happens again. Arsenal chase the match. United escape. Rashford attacks the space behind them, and another move ends with him in front of goal. 2 goals, 1 assist. But the important part isn't what Rashford did when he received the ball. It's where he was before it arrived. Watch him closely, and there is a pattern. He begins outside. The fullback sees him. Then Rashford waits. The defender's attention moves toward the ball for half a second, and Rashford moves in the opposite direction. Outside becomes inside. Winger becomes striker. A harmless position near the touchline becomes a sprint toward goal. The defender now has an impossible little problem. Step toward Rashford and leave the space behind. Drop away and let him receive facing forward. Follow him inside and surrender the outside lane. So the defender hesitates, and Rashford lives inside hesitation. His greatest gift was never merely acceleration. Football has produced hundreds of players who could run. Rashford understood where to begin running. He could stand almost outside the attack, appearing disconnected, until the defensive line moved 1 meter too high, or one defender looked in the wrong direction. Then he was gone. A winger by starting position, a striker by destination. And in 2022/23, Manchester United finally built an attack that understood the difference. The following season produced one of the strangest clues in Rashford's career. His touches inside the opposition box barely changed. Around 6.2 per 90 became roughly 6.1. Almost nothing. Yet his shots dropped from 3.4 to around 2.5 per 90. His non-penalty expected goals collapsed from roughly 0.53 to 0.20. Same player, similar amount of box involvement. Far less danger. Because Rashford was arriving differently. Luke Shaw's absences damaged the relationship on United's left. The team's structure became less stable. Rashford increasingly received farther from goal, with more defenders between himself and the space he wanted. Instead of being the man at the end of progression, he was being asked to help manufacture it. Carry farther, beat the first defender, create the angle, find the pass, then somehow still arrive in the box. The previous season, United gave Rashford a road. Now they gave him a shovel and asked him to build one. And this is where versatility became dangerous. Rashford could play striker, so he played striker. He could operate on the right, so he operated on the right. He could receive deeper, so he received deeper. All of those statements were technically true. None of them answered the more important question. Why would you want him to? Because a player being capable of doing something doesn't mean that thing is what makes him special. Put Rashford centrally with his back against a center back, and his greatest advantage begins disappearing before he even touches the ball. Put him wide with 2 defenders standing 5 meters away and no space behind them, and the same thing happens. But turn those defenders toward their own goal, and Rashford becomes a different animal. Manchester United didn't suddenly lose a talented footballer. They lost the environment that made his talent terrifying. Eventually, they lost Rashford too. Aston Villa became the bridge. And even there, when the formation placed him centrally, his movements kept drifting left. You could change the letters beside his name. His instincts kept returning him to the same place. Then Barcelona called. And this is where the entire theory should have fallen apart. Because if Rashford only worked when football became chaotic, Barcelona should have been wrong for him. Barcelona's attacking opponents who have already retreated. Where was Rashford supposed to find his beloved runway there? That was the contradiction, and Barcelona provided the answer. Rashford didn't need chaos, he needed geometry. Alejandro Balde could hold width on the left. Robert Lewandowski could occupy central defenders. Pedri and Frenkie de Jong could circulate the ball until tiny spaces appeared between defensive lines. And suddenly Rashford didn't always have to stand on the touchline. He could occupy right back, wonder whether he belonged to him. Different country, different manager, different football. Same problem for the defender. The names changed, the geometry didn't. Against Newcastle in the Champions League, Rashford scored twice. The first came from exactly the kind of attacking instinct his career had been built around. Find the dangerous space and arrive before the defense can reorganize. Then came the second. Rashford receives outside the area, creates the shooting angle and drives a thunderous strike, two different goals revealing the same thing. When Rashford receives facing the goal rather than fighting with his back toward it, the pitch becomes larger. Months later came Real Madrid, El Clasico, Barcelona closing in on the league title. And Rashford scored again as Barcelona won the match that secured the championship. The player Manchester could no longer comfortably fit into its attack, had crossed Europe and found another version of the same corridor. Barcelona hadn't repaired Marcus Rashford. They had exposed the flaw in the question everyone had been asking. This wasn't about whether Rashford needed counter-attacking football. It wasn't even really about whether he was a striker or winger. It was about orientation, space, and what Rashford could see when he received the ball. Give him the pitch in front of him, and football changes. Then England offered another reminder at the 2026 World Cup. Croatia were chasing the game. The match stretched. Space appeared. Rashford arrived. Goal. Same story, different shirt. But there is still a problem. Marcus Rashford is not perfect. Put 10 defenders behind the ball and the picture becomes uglier. There is less space behind the fullback. Fewer opportunities to accelerate. More moments where the winger has to manipulate a defender from a standing start, rather than outrun one already retreating. Rashford isn't Lamine Yamal, demanding possession again and again until a defense breaks. He isn't a playmaker who wants every attack flowing through his feet. His pressing intensity has fluctuated. His decision-making has frustrated supporters. There have been seasons where confidence appeared to drain from his football entirely. These aren't imaginary weaknesses. They're part of the reason calling him the perfect winger sounds ridiculous. Unless perfection has been misunderstood. A key isn't badly designed because it cannot open every door. It is perfect when it meets the lock it was made for. If you need a winger to dominate possession, there are better choices. If you need someone to solve crowded spaces for 90 minutes, there are better choices. If you need your wide player to become the central brain of your attack, choose somebody else. But if your football needs depth, if you need the defensive line pushed backward, if you need someone capable of starting beside the touchline and appearing seconds later beside the striker, if you need open grass turned into panic, then Marcus Rashford begins making frightening sense. Some wingers want defenders looking at them. Rashford wants defenders looking at the ball, because that's when he leaves. And maybe that is why his career has confused us for so long. We searched for progression when the answer was repetition. Look at the teenager who exploded into Manchester United's first team. Look at the 30-goal Rashford. Look at Villa, Barcelona, England. Ignore the shirts. Ignore the managers. Ignore the little letters on the formation graphic. Watch where he begins. Then watch where he goes. Outside the right back, across his shoulder, into the corridor. Toward goal, again and again. The movement survived every version of Marcus Rashford, because the movement was Marcus Rashford. Football kept asking whether he was a winger or a striker. He spent 10 years answering both. Start me like one, let me finish like the other. Because Marcus Rashford was never built to own every inch of the football pitch. He only needed a few meters. That narrow strip between a defender who isn't sure whether to step forward and another who isn't sure whether to come across. There is only the run, the defender, and the space between them. Maybe that is what the perfect winger was supposed to be all along. Not someone who can do everything. Someone who knows exactly which part of the pitch belongs to him, and gets there before anyone else does.